Today on Upfront, the fight over health care in America. Wisconsin U.S. Senator Ron Johnson becomes a key vote on the Hill, while Democrats force Republicans to go it alone. Next, U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin on the unfolding debate. Then, healthcare at home. A major Wisconsin insurer pulls out of the federal exchanges. I'll ask Republican State Senator Leah Vukmir about the effect on patients. Plus, the U.S. Supreme Court takes a Wisconsin case that could affect the nation.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Upfront. We've now had our first look at the long-awaited Senate Republican health care bill, a 142-page draft that proposes to cut Medicaid and the individual mandate that requires insurance and repeal a tax increase on the wealthy that paid for Obamacare. But the Senate plan is hardly a sure thing. Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson says he cannot support it, at least not right now.
Holding a vote on this next week would definitely be rushed. I can't imagine, quite honestly, that I'd have the information to evaluate and justify a yes vote within just a week.
Several Republican senators have joined Johnson in expressing concern about the bill, virtually guaranteeing that they will at least have a role in shaping a final plan. Republicans can only lose 2 votes and still pass the bill. That's because Democrats are united in their opposition to the plan. And we're joined now by one of them, Wisconsin's Democratic U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin. Senator, it's good to have you back on the program.
It's good to join you. Thanks for having me.
So you've looked at this Senate bill. What would it mean for the people of Wisconsin if it were to become law?
You know, health care is deeply personal. Let me speak for myself first. As a child, I had a serious illness and then was labeled as a child with a pre-existing condition. And I spent a lot of my youth without health insurance. I think that Wisconsinites, many families share that experience and share those anxieties of what will happen next. When I look at this Republican Senate proposal, I see a lot to be concerned about, but the bottom line is that most people will pay more for less care. We see very sizable and disturbing cuts to the Medicaid program, which covers most pregnancies and maternity cares, or almost half in the nation. We see cuts that would impact people who have loved ones in nursing care. And we see a weakening of the guaranteed protections that people enjoy today with their care, and perhaps even sort of tossing it to the states to decide whether those protections for people with pre-existing conditions would remain around.
Republicans, as you know, say, look, we've got to do something. Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act is in trouble. They point to what happened in Wisconsin last week. 2 providers say we're opting out of the exchange. They talk about skyrocketing rates, premiums. They say we've got to do something. Do you agree? Do you think the Affordable Care Act is in trouble?
Well, let me take your question apart. First of all, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield did announce they were leaving because insurance markets needs stability. And right now, they don't have it. And they don't have it because the Republicans in the House and Senate are trying to repeal the healthcare marketplace. And they don't have that certainty that they need. They have disruption instead because President Trump and the Republicans in Congress are threatening to withhold support for the insurance marketplace, the type of support that helps keep out-of-pocket costs down for people in our communities. And so I do not buy the fact that that it is the underlying law that's causing the problem that led Anthem to leave. In fact, they wrote a letter saying just what I pointed to. The other issue is that, yes, costs are too high. And the bill that just got released from behind closed doors in the Senate will make it worse. It doesn't say anything about the high cost of prescription drugs. That's something that Washington should be working together to stand up to those drug corporations that are jacking their prices up for sometimes life-saving medications like the EpiPen for people with severe allergies. You know, I teamed up with Senator John McCain to introduce legislation that would rein in those prices and rein in those drug corporations. You know what those drug corporations got in this bill? A tax break. We need to be standing up, and there's all sorts of work we could do together to strengthen the healthcare system and reduce costs if we work together and parted with this partisan nonsense of repealing Obamacare.
You don't think Democrats deserve any of the blame for not wanting to work together? They basically have said, if you're going to repeal it, count us out. Could you have done more to work with Republicans on this?
Well, as I said, I just introduced a bill, John McCain as my partner, to deal with the cost issues related to the prescription drug issue, something that is very burdensome to folks that rely on prescriptions to extend their lives or treat illness. That said, yes, there's so much room for us to work together to bring down costs, but why did they release a bill that instead has an age tax and is going to increase the costs for people who have pre-existing conditions and weaken the protections that people now enjoy?
What do you do about this? I mean, they really do control the destiny, the Republicans control the destiny of this bill. What do Democrats do? Do you try and delay this so that the lawmakers, the Republicans, go back home over the holiday and perhaps hear from their constituents? What's the game plan here?
Well, Mike, I can tell you that the people of Wisconsin did not send me to the Senate to take people's health care away. And what I have been heartened by is how many Wisconsinites and people across America who have begun to speak out to tell their stories. I took to the floor on Monday night, nearly the middle of the night, to share the stories of Wisconsinites who had written me to tell me about caring for loved ones with multiple sclerosis, with diabetes, with, in one case, a young child with a congenital heart disease, all panicked, frankly, by what this measure would do and how it would impact themselves and their loved ones. So I think we work together to speak out, try to make sure that the public has the right to see this bill that was drafted in secret, and hope that we can persuade them to discard their partisan aims and work with us to fix our healthcare system for everyone.
I've only got just a few seconds left. At the end of the day, do you think Republicans will pass this bill?
Well, I would say that it's, for those of us who oppose it, it's an uphill battle. They do control the House, they control the Senate, and they control the presidency. That said, we have to fight, and we must win. It's people's health and lives that are at stake here.
Senator Tammy Baldwin is the U.S. Senator, a Democrat from Madison. It's good to have you on the program again. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
And as we mentioned, there is other health insurance news in Wisconsin. That major insurer, Anthem, saying it'll stop selling individual plans in 71 of the state's 72 counties. We'll be talking more about that in the next few minutes, plus campus-free speech legislation. What are its prospects in the state Senate? I'll be asking Republican sponsor Leah Vukmir next on Upfront.
Up Front with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company and the Wisconsin Corn Growers Association.
Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield says it's pulling out of the federal health care exchange in Wisconsin in all but one county. Anthem blamed a volatile market for its decision and uncertainty about what the federal government is doing with Obamacare rules and regulations. Republican State Senator Leah Vukmir, a potential U.S. Senate candidate, said Anthem's decision reflects what she calls the disastrous effect of the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. And Senator Vukmir joins us now on Up Front. Senator, it's good to have you back on the program.
Thank you, Mike, for having me on.
How would you describe the state of the insurance exchange in Wisconsin at this moment?
Well, it's very unfortunate to see Anthem pulling out of the market in Wisconsin. You know, Wisconsin used to have 20 insurance providers, and that was before Obamacare. And now if you look at the lay of the land in Wisconsin, in 2 counties, we only have 1 insurance provider. In 13 counties, we only have 2. That's a dramatic reduction, and it really is contrary to what President Obama said, that, you know, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. That has not borne out in the state of Wisconsin. And you couple that with the rising cost of insurance premiums, a 93% increase in insurance premium rates in the state of Wisconsin alone. This is absurd. This is not an Affordable Health Care Act. And that's why it's very important that the right decisions are made in Washington, and it's done very carefully, because it is going to affect a lot of people. But something needs to be done. Obamacare is an utter, utter failure and disaster.
Democrats say Republicans have contributed to that because they've created the uncertainty about the future of the program. What's your response to that?
That's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, and it's just their empty rhetoric, because, you know, they bear the blame for this sitting in their hands. There is no way around it. We had a rather robust market in the state of Wisconsin, and to see the numbers dwindling, look, Wisconsin had a great track record of taking care of our own citizens. We were ahead of the curve. In many ways, before Obamacare hit, you know, we had one of the lowest uninsured rates. We had a program, our own program for people with pre-existing conditions, the HRSA plan. We had to dismantle that program with Obamacare. And, you know, that's why I think states are the best place where decisions can be made.
You said we should be careful in what we're doing in Washington, and obviously we've seen a Senate health bill. You're talking about the potential of running for the U.S. Senate. People are curious. Do you support what's being talked about by the Senate and by the House in Washington?
Look, even Mitch McConnell called what came out this week a discussion draft. And it is a great starting point, and that's why when you understand the legislative process, you have to start somewhere. And that's why I applaud Senator Johnson and others for slowing down the process and saying, look, maybe we need to add to this bill, maybe we need to take certain things out.
You don't think they need to rush a vote by the middle of next week?
No, I think this needs to be done right, because it affects so many Americans. And, you know, I appreciate their taking the time to look at this very carefully. Look, it just came out. And so, you know, unlike Senator Baldwin, when she was a member of the House, you know, she voted for the plan, as Nancy Pelosi said, she voted for it before she knew what was in it. And I don't want our members of Congress to do that, and our U.S. senators. They need to really think about this carefully. To the extent that they give us more power back at the states to do what we know is right for our citizens, I think we're ready for the task in Wisconsin.
I want to ask you about a couple of things that are happening back here in Wisconsin. You're a member of the Joint Finance Committee. You're still trying to hammer out a budget. Senator Darling, the co-chair of Joint Finance, says, you know, we are still a long way apart on transportation. How confident are you you're going to be able to find something that satisfies both the Senate and the Assembly? Well,
she's right. We are far apart in the Senate and the Assembly on the transportation, but we have covered an awful lot of ground in a lot of policy areas to this point. And there were sticking points along the way, and we managed to find that happy point, that medium point. And I think we will do it. It just sometimes takes a little bit of time. I think that you will find that the Senate and the governor probably align more together on transportation. And so we'll just need to continue the discussion.
You're a sponsor of campus free speech legislation. We saw the Assembly last week approve a bill that's somewhat similar to yours, Jesse Kramer and Robin Vos sponsoring that. What is the status of your bill? And explain for our audience the key difference between what you're proposing and what has been proposed in the Assembly.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's a very important issue because our First Amendment rights are under attack all across the country. And I've talked to college kids across the state of Wisconsin on the campuses. And, you know, our campuses used to be the place where you have the free exchange of ideas, where you had a chance to, you know, push the window of discussion and learn how to hone your skills in debating. And now we have students who are fearful of speaking. So what my bill does with Representative Jarchow is expand it to include technical colleges. And we also expand it to not just look at students, but faculty, administration. And then I think one of the key, most important points of our bill is that it requires the Board of Regents to develop a policy, and that policy has to have legislative oversight. So I think it gives it a little bit more teeth. So I'm looking forward to having that discussion in the Senate, and we'll see where things go.
Where do you think it stands in the Senate right now? Is it something definitely that will get serious consideration?
Oh, I'm planning on it. Right now the budget's keeping me a little busy, but once we get through with that, I'd like to move that bill forward.
And I have to ask you, what are your plans in terms of the possibility of running for the U.S. Senate?
Well, as I just said, the budget has been my priority, and it will be at this point. But I'm humbled by the show of support that I've had from so many people across our state since the November election, asking me to step up and run against Tammy Baldwin. People believe that she is not representing the best interests of our state, and so I am giving it very serious and prayerful consideration.
Timeline for a decision?
No timeline at this point. My focus is on the budget.
All right. Senator Leah Vukmir, who is a Republican lawmaker, also a nurse. I should have pointed that out earlier. Thanks very much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
Next, the Wisconsin case that could affect the way legislative maps are drawn around the country.